Tap it once, tap it twice, tap it trice. Let's talk about the Kentucky Derby qualifier, the Tampa Bay Derby, coming up this weekend, and the favorite, Tap it Trice. Salutations and welcome, horse racing fans. I'm your host to this episode of the first look at the Tampa Bay Derby. My name is Matthew DeSantis, and you can find me on Twitter at the handle at failed to menace. Well, before we get any further, just make sure to press that subscribe button here on YouTube to Trust the Profits, because we got you covered. Anything horse racing you are interested in, we have you covered. Tampa Bay Derby, we got a whole analysis of the Tampa Bay card. We got Thursday night live betting on the lounge. We got fair odds discussions coming up tomorrow. We got people talking about the Aziri. We have so much different content for you each and every week here on Trust the Profits, with different perspectives, different views, different guests from across the industry, trusted voices that you can believe in. So make sure to press that subscribe button. Now, make sure to follow me on Twitter at the handle at Failed to Menace to get all of my latest content as we're going through this Triple Crown season. And make sure to like this video and comment below with who is your top pick for this weekend's Tampa Bay Derby. Well, we are going to head down to the Bay in a part of the country that I really love. I used to live in Lakeland, Florida, about 45 minutes or so from Tampa Bay Downs. Used to go there all the time. Really enjoy this track, really enjoy this race a lot. And this is the only Kentucky Derby prep race this week. And it's an interestingly situated race. Trainer Mark Casse brought this point up earlier today to Marty McGee of DRF. He said, listen, this is kind of the perfectly placed prep because you can get a prep in, but it's 8 weeks out from the Kentucky Derby. You can go back in 4 weeks and run at the Arkansas Derby, the Bluegrass. You have a couple of different options. And so, again, this is only a 50-point prep race, so it's not those big 100-pointers that Casse was referencing. But it, like I said, it's a nice stepping stone potentially for other things. Now, that said, there has not been a winner of the Tampa Bay Derby that has gone on to win the Kentucky Derby since Street Sense back in 2006, I believe. And so that was a little while ago, needless to say, but there is a connection to Street Sense in this field that we're going to talk about here in a second. So what are we going to do today? Well, we're just going to take a look at the field. It just got announced Wednesday afternoon, and going to give you initial impressions, initial thoughts on this Kentucky Derby prep field. And it is a field of 12 horses. And it's a grade 3 race going a mile and a 16th for 3-year-olds. Like I said, it's a 50-point race. And what you see here up on the graphic, obviously post position, the horse, the trainer, but also you see how they did in their last start and where that last start was located. And in some distances, what was the distance of that last race, especially if they're coming out of a non-stakes race. So the big name, obviously, that sticks out to everyone is sitting there in the number 6 hole, Tapit Trice. For Todd Pletcher, this was a horse that had a huge win by 8.5 lengths over his stablemate Schisturkin, who is also in this race in the 9 post. But that was an allowance. That was a one-turn allowance race at Gulfstream Park. Tapit Trice absolutely looked much the best that day, looked so impressive. He's a horse I think a lot of people really like, very high on a lot of people's Kentucky Derby list. That said, Tapit Trice has never gone 2 turns, never run in a stakes race, has never run at Tampa Downs. I bring that up for a reason. Tampa Bay Downs has been a speed favoring track all meet. Closers have not particularly run well there. You've not seen horses make up ground. We saw this play out during the Sam F. Davis just 4 weeks ago, and we saw this play out in the Sun Coast as well 4 weeks ago for the Phillies in a Kentucky Oaks race, that this track is just so speed favoring that once you get on the lead, it's very hard to make up ground. Phillies like Wonder Wheel and Julia Shining really struggled to get there at the end against a long shot like Dreaming of Snow, who got up on the front end. Very speed favoring track. So it's important to remember that when looking at this race and thinking about how it might very well play out. But let's talk a little bit about each of these horses. And we'll start on the inside path with Lord Miles. This is a horse that ran a very poor effort at the Holy Bull last time out. Now, that said, ran decently, third place at the Mucho Macho Man right before that. That said, the horse seems to have regressed a little bit. I don't particularly like the inside rail here. That's where he was stuck in the Holy Bull, and he didn't prior particularly well from there. So, pretty out on the Safi Joseph Jr. horse. It's interesting. Safi has the inside post and the far outside post. I'm a little bit more interested in the horse on the far outside than I am in Lord Miles. Now let's move to Classic Car Wash. This is a horse that finished third at the Sam F. Davis for Mark Casse. Here's the reason why I think people might be bullish on Classic Car Wash. It's a horse that actually showed some ability to overcome the track bias that day, actually made up a decent amount of ground throughout the race. Now, still finished a pretty well beaten third, but it's important to point out that third, fourth, fifth place finish was really a bang, bang, bang between Classic Car Wash, Classic Legacy, and Zydeco. Those four finished, or those three, I should say, finished within about a length of, not even a length of each other, ahead of each other. So keep that in mind. That third place versus fourth place versus fifth place really threw a blanket over them. They were all about the same that day. That said, this horse did absolutely win his previous two races prior to that Sam F. Davis. So you have to like there's a winning form there for Mark Casse, bringing this horse back, getting this horse ready. So I do think this is a horse I'm interested in using, maybe a little bit more underneath, but I do view Classic Car Wash as a very legitimate horse in this particular spot. Another horse I really like here, and if I'm going to use a price, it's probably going to be Classic Legacy. Fourth place that day, but like I said, throw a blanket over those third, fourth, and fifth place horses. They were all the same. Here's why I like Classic Legacy. A couple of reasons. One, he's a half to art collector. You always have to like that. Art collector is a personal favorite of mine. He also just seems like a very viable horse to use in this race. Even if you don't like him as maybe a threat to win up top, he feels like a horse that's going to fire. Sam F. Davis was the first time running a race after breaking his maiden. And here's the real kicker. Irad Ortiz Jr. leaves Schisturkin, who he had been riding up to this point, leaves Schisturkin to go to Classic Legacy. I think that's noteworthy and something to pay attention to. Very much so like Classic Legacy in this spot. Think this is a really live shot. Another horse I think has a chance is the number 4, Groveland. Groveland finished second in that Sam F. Davis. Here's why I like Groveland in the Tampa Bay Derby a little bit, and why I think you might be able to get decent value on him. He should sit the right trip. He's going to sit more of a stalking trip, I think. And that means that he kind of negates some of that speed favoring bias. He's going to be sitting not on the lead, but close to the lead, close enough that he's not going to have to make up a ton of ground late. Very much so like this horse. Broke his maiden, then finished second to Prairie Hawk, and then second again. And then, at the Sam F. Davis, this horse likes the distance of getting stretched out. And here's the connection that you got to love. Sired by Street Sense. As I said, the last horse to win the Tampa Bay Derby that then went on to win the Kentucky Derby, Street Sense. So if you're liking that kind of connection and pedigree, Groveland, not a bad horse to use. And I should point out, Groveland was about a length behind Litigate winning that Sam F. Davis. And then there was a little bit of a gap of about 3-4 lengths back to that third, fourth, and fifth place finish. So Groveland really did, I think, assert himself as a very nice horse. I liked him underneath that day. He ran underneath that day at a nice price. But I think he's a horse that is ascending and moving in the right direction, and you might be able to get it at a little bit of a price. Mikey Bananas, for me, is a kind of almost an immediate toss. This was a horse that was second in an allowance race at Tampa Bay Downs going a mile. He's not won yet against lower level company. Hard to see him have an opportunity to really even hit the board in this particular race. Well, then we get to Tapit Trice, and obviously will be the favorite, will probably be the overwhelming favorite. Tune in tomorrow. Great video. I'm going to plug this right now. Me and Ed DeRosa from Horse Racing Nation, we're going to talk not just about morning line odds. We're going to talk about fair odds. We're going to talk about not just picking a winner, but telling you what price you should be using to bet that winner. I bring this up with Tapit Trice because I can very easily see an instance where Tapit Trice goes off, similar to Forte, under even money in this field. And quite frankly, I don't want to bet Tapit Trice at 4-5 in this race. I would rather try to find value somewhere else. Now, there is a price at which Tapit Trice is appealing, but that's what we're going to talk a little bit about on that video. So make sure to tune back in tomorrow for that one with me and Ed. But like I said, Tapit Trice, you can't argue with the fact that there is incredible talent there. The concern with Tapit Trice is he does not break that alertly. He comes from a little bit off the pace, and this is a track that does not set up well for that. Also, he's facing a much larger field than he's ever faced before. Now facing a 12 horse field. We talk about this a lot. How do you weave through horses when there's more horses to weave through, right? Deep closers. This is always the concern when you look at closers coming in. Now, I wouldn't say he's a deep closer, but he's a horse that I think if you look at that last race might be a little deceiving. Why? Because that was a very slow paced mile race at Gulfstream Park. And he was able to sit much closer to that pace than I think he would otherwise. There's a fair amount of speed in this race. It's a speed favoring track as well. I don't see Tapit Trice sitting particularly close. Mid pack, probably at best. And again, how much work does he give himself to do? And listen, he's fighting the track, I would argue, as much as he is fighting the rest of the horses in this field. So something to keep in mind when people start going bonkers about Tapit Trice, especially once once the windows open and you start seeing his odds plummet. Just draw a line in the sand for yourself and go, listen, I'm not betting this horse at lower than X price. That's a little bit of what we're going to talk about with fair odds. But listen, he's going to be the favorite. I'm not telling you that he's going to run a bad race. I don't think he is going to run a bad race. The question is, does he give himself too much to do? Is there a little too many? Are there too many other horses in this field for him to pass? And how is the track playing this day? That's something you can ascertain throughout the day. And that's something where sometimes our opinions change throughout the day. I always use the example of when I was at Pimlico for the Preakness last year, and I sat there and watched Lightning Larry win a sprint race after setting insane early fractions that he should have easily melted down, and he didn't. I went and I said, okay, I'm going to bet everything I want on early voting because there's no way that horse is losing this race now. I wasn't a fan of early voting going into it, but with the way the track played, it set up nicely for him. So pay attention to how is that Tampa track playing on Saturday? Is it speed favoring? Is it fair? Do you see people coming from the back on the dirt with some success? Well, Freedom Road, pretty much a long shot, very similar to Mikey Bananas in some way. This is a horse that is a little bit more of a sprint horse. Did win an allowance race at Tampa last time out, but only at 6 furlongs. 2 times this horse has gone a mile or longer, has not necessarily worked out well at Laurel Park or at Delaware. So it's just not faced this same caliber of horse. And like I said, not really a lot of confidence there. Now, Dreaming of Kona is an interesting horse. 7th in the Sam F. Davis, but won the Mucho Macho Man right before that. This is a horse that absolutely has ability, which is not entirely sold. It's on 2 turns. I think this might be a 1-turn miler, maybe a 7 furlong horse. Speed figure wise, what's interesting is his best race was actually his maiden on the synthetic. So I'm not even sure dirt's his best surface. So something to keep in mind there with Dreaming of Kona. I like the horse, but I just do wonder how good this horse is going 2 turns as opposed to that 1 turn. I think that Mucho Macho Man was kind of a perfect setup for him in terms of a 1-turn mile. Well, let's go to Schisturkin, who got outclassed late in that allowance race by his stablemate, Tapit Trice, and now loses Irad Ortiz Jr., will get Edgar Zayas up on the mount. And part of the reason maybe I'm not completely out on Schisturkin here, and you might actually get a decent price on him, is because I feel like that last race, they got a little too cute. And I don't know if it was Irad getting too cute or Pletcher or the connections or what have you. But Schisturkin in that last race should have been easily the speed of the speed in that race and should have opened up 3-4 lengths in that field. Has outstanding natural early speed. What did he do? He tried to rate. Now, I understand sometimes you want horses to learn how to rate, see how they respond to it, and so forth, but it led to those slower fractions and not using his best gift. If you have a speed horse, let the horse be fast. I always am very frustrated when a horse is not more aggressively ridden in this regard and utilizing their natural talent and natural ability. Now, here's the thing. Schisturkin's going to have to go in this race because to his outside is where a lot of the speed is. Zydeco and Prairie Hawk, who we'll get to here in a second, have a lot of early speed and like to flash that early speed. Groveland to his inside will want to be stalking and close, but doesn't need to be on the lead. It's really on the outside. I would also argue Lord Miles is probably going to send it from the rail to try to get up there and so make sure he doesn't get shuffled back. So Schisturkin needs to flash that early speed to get out there. Is he a different horse if you get him out on the lead a little bit? Don't make him rate. He's naturally faster than these horses early in terms of the pace. So let him be naturally faster. I think Zayas is actually a good jockey for him in that regard. I don't have a problem with that. And that's no shot at Irad, who obviously I like a lot on Classic Legacy. But I just think that last race may not have been entirely emblematic of the best type of effort and the best type of trip Schisturkin needs to win. Well, let's move to Champion's Dream, which is a supplemented entry for Mark Cassie. A little surprising to see him here. I'll be honest. Finished 11th in that Sam F. Davis and was pulled up and slowed coming down the stretch. And a lot of talk around the barn that the horse did not cool down particularly well. But horses seem to apparently bounced back, had some nice works. Important to point out, this is the only graded stakes winner in this entire field. Won the grade 3 Nashua at Aqueduct last year as a 2-year-old, then comes back to finish second in the Pasco Stakes to Zydeco at 7 furlongs. Horse has talent. Horse has ability. How healthy is this horse going to be? We'll see. But Champion's Dream was a very nice horse that was getting a fair amount of attention and action at the windows in that Sam F. Davis. Could absolutely come back and do the same thing here. I think I would be interested to see what the odds are going to be on Champion's Dream, because I wouldn't mind using that horse a little bit underneath for, I think, a much bigger price than what you would have gotten last time out. Now, Zydeco is an interesting horse. This is a sprint horse, I think, all the day through, but it shows you how well speed held up last time out at the Sam F. Davis. Finished 5th in that clump with Classic Car Wash and Classic Legacy, and really was the lone speed in that race. And you thought, well, Zydeco is going to fade. Zydeco is going to fade. Zydeco is going to fade. And Zydeco just really didn't fade. I mean, he eventually got beat, obviously, but it wasn't what you expected out of a horse trying 2 turns for the first time and going a new distance and being the speed in that race. I mean, I thought, gave in a really admirable 5th place effort in that race. And if he's able to carve out a similar trip here, it'll be interesting to see if he can get to the lead again and how much that track holds up early speed. I don't view him as a win threat, but I do view him as a value play that you can absolutely use underneath. Well, let's finish up with Prairie Hawk. Terrible start last time out. Wasn't paying attention. Got off slow. And that was kind of it. This is a horse that kind of needs the lead a little bit, but is not naturally fast. But the thing is, you're on the far outside. What are you going to do? You're going to send it. That's exactly what last time out in the Sam F. Davis, if you rewatch that race, starting on the far outside, posts 11 and 12, Zydeco and Litigate. What did they do? They sent it hard. They got out and they crossed and cleared, and they saved ground. Prairie Hawk and Zydeco are going to do the exact same thing this time. The question and the problem is Schisturkin. Will Schisturkin get in the way of them being able to cross and clear, or is Schisturkin going to just be so fast that they can cross and clear and sit in that second flight, perhaps behind the early speed of Schisturkin? Fascinating development. But I think Prairie Hawk is a decent enough horse. I think you give this horse a better trip. Maybe there's a better finish. Made a little bit of a middle move in that Sam F. Davis and then flattened out down the stretch. I just think if this horse is more forwardly placed, he's going to give you a better effort. Again, don't view him as a win candidate. Maybe a little bit more like Champion's Dream, a little bit more of an underneath use. You might be able to get it a little bit of a price. Well, that is the full field rundown for the Tampa Bay Derby, not the Sam F. Davis. That was last month. Anyway, that was a full field rundown for the Tampa Bay Derby. And we obviously, on capping the card, I always give out my top pick, my top value play. We don't have the morning line yet, but I will tell you, I think I'm leaning, and there's still some time to decide on this because the PPs aren't even out yet. I'm leaning towards using Groveland and Classic Legacy, I think, in this race, kind of maybe fading Tapit Trice. And the reason I say that is really with the exception of Forte and Practical Move, we've seen favorites struggle in different spots in this Derby. And Arabian Night obviously looked very, very good in the Southwest, but there are a fair amount of upsets that happen. And I just feel like Tampa on Saturday is going to have a little bit of upset potential with the way that track plays. But I think that's where you're going to go for values: Groveland, Classic Legacy, maybe even Classic Car Wash. All right, well, that does it for me. Make sure to subscribe to Trust the Profits, like this video, follow me on Twitter at the handle @FailedToMenace, and tune into all the great coverage that we have here on Trust the Profits. Until next time, friends, my name is Matthew DeSantis, wishing you a great and profitable day at the races and reminding you that it's now post time.